So, McLaren, 2025 Constructors Champions, 2025 Drivers Champions as well, coming to the brand new season, brand new regulations, in a bit of an interesting position. I would say they're not favorites going into the season, but they definitely look like at this point they're, in that front group of front-running cars. Now, starting this season preview of McLaren, of course, we want to take a look first at their very, very successful 2025 season. So 2025, a season that saw the team win the Constructors Championships, 833 points. Excellent season in that regard. Average pole gap as well, 6,500ths of a second. They were the best team in qualifying by about 2/10, so fastest by a pretty decent margin. And in race performance, race pace, very good as well. An average minimum finishing position of 1.46, which was over a position ahead of the next best team. But they did almost lose the Drivers' Championship. Only won that title courtesy of Lando Norris by a margin of 2 points. Of course, would have been a little bit bigger if they'd swapped Piastri and Norris around in that final race of the season. But still, I think it was a race where I think operationally on both the team side and on the driver's side, there were definitely some hiccups here and there. But still, nonetheless, a very, very good season by McLaren. So again, coming in on definitely a pretty big high. It'll be really interesting to see how this team does in 2026. Now, speaking of new regulations, unfortunately, this is a team that has historically not done very well in those new regulations. When you look at their record, last four major regulation changes, this is a team that has not done great coming out of the gate. 2005 is probably the best of the bunch. They go from a 2004 season, which was pretty bad, an unreliable, slow car, to challenging for the Constructors and Drivers Championships. They finished second, 2005, 182 points, only second to Renault. 2009, of course, they were in that Drivers Championship right down to the very final race, winning it courtesy of Lewis Hamilton. They did lose to Constructors, but after that, there was a pretty big drop-off, especially the first half of the 2009 season. They do claw their way back. Second half of that 2009 season, finished third, 71 points. A lot of that courtesy of Lewis Hamilton. So again, definitely not an awful season, especially when you consider that they improved massively as the season went along. Now, 2014, they finished fifth, which I think was seen as a bit of an improvement from 2013, which was pretty terrible, but still definitely lower than the highs they'd experienced in the early 2010s. They finished fifth, 181 points. And they were the the third best Mercedes powered car. So again, not great on that front. Slower than, of course, the Works team Mercedes, and then of course slower than Williams as well. And they would opt to go to Honda power units next year, feeling that to succeed in this formula, they needed to be a Works team, and that of course set them back for about a decade. And it was only really mid 2023 where they consistently became a front running car again. Now, 2022, the last year of this set, end of 2020, 2021, they were a pretty good team. They were kind of seen as being pretty competitive with Ferrari. And then, of course, 2022, they had very, very divergent outcomes. 2022, Ferrari, of course, were one of the fastest teams at the start of the year, whereas McLaren kind of took a step back. They were fifth, 159 points, and worse than Alpine, or at least competitive with Alpine, I should say. And so, again, this is a team that in the first year of new regulations have not done particularly well. And it feels like it's kind of taken a bit of time for them to kind of get up to speed. And it'll be interesting if that is the case again with this set of regulations, especially given what we kind of know so far from testing. Now, taking a look at their driver lineup, same driver lineup that they've had the last three seasons, I should say. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. Norris, of course, your defending World Drivers Champion, 26 years of age from the United Kingdom, going into his 8th season of Formula One. 152 starts and 1,430 points. His career best in the Drivers Championship, of course, he achieved last year, which was first. Now, for Piastri, 24 years of age from Australia, entering his 4th season in Formula One. 70 starts to his name, 799 points, and a career best of third, which was also last year, 2025. Now, looking at wins, poles, and podiums, for Norris, definitely slightly better career numbers here, but of course his career's been a little bit longer than Piastri's. 11 wins, 16 poles, and 44 podiums for Norris. and for Piastri, 9 wins, 6 poles, and 26 podiums. So interesting that the pole to win ratio is actually a little bit better for Piastri, more wins than poles, whereas Norris has more poles than wins. Now, when you look at my expected points model for career points above expected, Norris has been the better of the two so far, right on exactly 100% for Norris, so he scored exactly how many points he's expected to based on the strength of his car and where he starts Grand Prix. For Piastri, a career average of 90%, so a little bit below average, which is not great, but he has spent most of his career in front-running machinery, so the standard tends to be a little bit higher. And, you know, those first couple years, the race pace, stuff like that, tends to take a little bit longer to kind of get up to speed. So understandable that it's still a little bit below 100%, but it has gotten better every single year for the Australian. Now, when you look at career race rating, career quality rating, basically their quality race performance over their careers, corrected for both age and experience, pretty interesting. I would say probably one of the strongest, one of the stronger driver pairings when it comes to their career quality and race rating, but I would say also probably the strongest driver lineup on the grid as well. But for Norris, career quality rating of negative 0.486, which ranks 6th since 1995, so very, very good company there. Piastri a little bit behind him, negative 0.393, which ranks 11th. As for race rating, both of them are pretty good, but not quite as good as their quality ratings. So for Norris, a positive 0.506, which ranks 14th, and for Piastri, positive 0.247, which ranks 25th. Now, finishing up this video, trying to make some predictions about this season for McLaren. For my quality and race model predictions, looking at the predictions that have been generated for qualifying and the race performance. In qualifying, it's predicting actually an increase in the quality gap from last year, with Norris predicted to out-qualify Piastri by about 1/10 of a second. And since the data is basically based on averages from the last 3 seasons, it makes sense. Last year was the closest year that the two drivers had in qualifying. So when you're looking at averages from all 3 years, or in Piastri's case, all 3 years of his career, I think for Norris it would be the last 5 years, it makes sense that Norris has generally been the stronger of the two in qualifying, but I could very much see if these new regulations, for whatever reason, favored Piastri over Norris, that Piastri could actually out-qualify his teammate. But based on what we saw in testing, I think it seems like, at least for now, it seems like these regulations maybe favor Norris a little bit more than Piastri. So maybe this 1/10 prediction is a little bit more accurate, and it could even be a little bit higher than that. Now, when it comes to race performance, assuming that this team scores 500 points, which I think is actually a pretty good projection for how many points this team should score if they're about 3rd in the constructors, the model would predict that Norris would get 54.7% of the team's points, Piastri would get the other 45.3%. And when you look at the points difference, that's a gap of 47 points, which is also a little bit bigger than what the gap was at the end of the season between Norris and Piastri. Of course, you could make an entire video looking at, was that points gap too big? Which, McLaren had done things a little bit differently. Could the gap have been a lot closer? Could Piastri have actually been champion? So again, this points difference may be a little bit big, but again, it is based on last 3 years, I believe. So that would be Piastri's entire career, Norris's last 3 years. And so based on that data last 3 years, just not just last year, that these are kind of the numbers that have been spat out. I think it'll be very, very close between the two drivers. I think it could also be very, very interesting in terms of the impact that these two drivers could have on the driver market as well. I think if we see a situation where either of them is massively quicker than the other, then it could potentially cause the other driver to decide that maybe McLaren's not the best place long term, and maybe search for a seat somewhere else. I think particularly for Piastri that would be the case. I think for Norris, he's been there longer. There's a lot more loyalty, I think, given he was part of the McLaren kind of junior program. But for Piastri, I could definitely see him, if he feels that there's another year of, favoritism towards Norris, as there were, many accusations that was the case last year. I could definitely see Piastri trying to find another home come 2027 or 2028, depending on, contracts and contract, break clauses and such like that. But it should be a pretty good year for McLaren. They've looked decent in winter testing, but I think challenging for the championship might be a step too far. I think realistically they're going to be, fighting with Red Bull based on what we've seen, and that could be a lot more fights with Max Verstappen, which might just be another headache for these two drivers, something that they kind of probably have had enough of after last year. But that's all for my preview for the McLaren F1 team for 2026. This is the last preview that I've done. All 11 of them are now finished. We have the F1 season starting next week, so that should be very, very exciting. I'm going to do my predictions for the season this week, and then I'm going to do my preview for the Australian Grand Prix, and that should be a whole lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.